Today, we're continuing to bring everything together. Terminology, we've defined everything, we know how it works. Yesterday, we kind of got down and dirty and built some composite structure and took a look at how day after day kind of reacts to that and the nature of that movement. And today, we're going to really bring that home and say, here's how we see market movement. Here's how we feel that it really unfolds, the dynamic, the study of the way price moves around these structural areas. Okay, so any questions? Anything before we get going?
I have, and America can use this for everything, like all commodities. Or
I've yet to come across something that I pulled it up and it didn't feel. Yep, here's the principles. Here, like we talked about that equity example with Jackie the other day. I know for a fact I've looked at currencies. I've looked at very metals. Oh, absolutely. Yep. In fact, there's a famous story of we've tossed around the name Jim Dalton, one of the founders of Market Profile. Someone told me this story the other day that he actually was doing research on buying a house or selling a house in his area, and he got all this data together and essentially built like profiles to determine what he should do. That's just fantastic. So this stuff is really documenting the auction process, which is it kind of borderline is a study in behavioral economics, right? It's kind of like, at the end of the day, it's humans, whether or not they've programmed machines or they're making the decisions themselves. It's an auction process, so it really, really applies across the board. Just like we did yesterday, I'd like to start out with an example. So, what is today? The 17th. So, we had a 2-day balance on the 14th and the 15th. And going back even further, this square right here, this big square, this big value area, was that big fat composite that the S&P was in for 12 days. I don't know, a long time, okay? We spent some time, we kind of broke way down, we retraced back up, and we built this 2-day balance right here. So we've got an area where we're ultimately kind of trying to retest, and in fact, yesterday it looked like we opened right smack dab back in the middle of the day, and that's why we saw that rotational behavior, because we were back inside that main balance. It was kind of like we fizzled out, like it was done, right? We had tried to break away, we got back, and now we're rotational. Today, on the other hand, a different story. Look at where we open, right there, okay? That is below the more recent 2-day balance, okay? It is below the longer term, but very, very long in duration, which remember is another one of the importance factors of composite structure. Below that, so I believe that is 4650, and we have this, 6450, and that's that big composite value area low. And then 64 even is this prominent point of control from this more recent 2-day composite. So we open here. I put out in the Slack room, really keep an eye on 64. That is a very, very important area to watch. And 64, 64.50, that general little zone up there, you want to keep a sharp eye on. Sure enough, one of the things that we're not covering in this market profile course, but we will in the future, is using order flow and really like going from big picture stuff, which is what this does. It frames the context for us, to identifying what's the underlying mechanics of the order flow and what's happening as we test into 64. What clues can we garner? And we saw some very, very bearish signals, lack of participation on the upside. Sure enough, sellers slam it down. And I thought where I have this arrow here, so we rejected this point of control, essentially rejected the prior value. I thought that this was a good opportunity right here. 30-minute period closes down in. Small retest at the beginning of, in fact, it was a little consolidation. We talked about it in the morning meeting with a little head fake higher right into this area. Hit the short right there. And where does this thing zip to within that 30-minute period? runs all the way down to our 53. I got flat into 52 area, had a couple other references, some longer term things I was looking at it in that area, and that was that. So we then kind of start to get rotational in this area, and if we could pull up the chart now of what we currently look like, right there. So this is the recent short that Boris took. Right here. So we end up, instead of these prior two periods here, which both ended up popping back above this area, the first short he was talking about and the second short is this retest back into this 50, 52, 53 kind of area right there. And now we're continuing to push down. So let's talk about specifically these patterns that repeat and how we can take advantage of them.